Something is watching you from the inside of every dark room you have ever refused to enter. There was a man, call him Henry, and Henry was meticulous, controlled. The kind of person who organized his life the way you organize a filing cabinet. Everything labeled, everything in its place, nothing spilling over into the next drawer. And then the dream started. He is walking a narrow mountain road. On one side, a sheer drop into nothing. On the other, a wall of rock pressing against his shoulder. There are caves carved into the cliff face, rough shelters for anyone caught in a storm, and inside one of them, half hidden, something waits, a shapeless, spongy creature. Part woman, part something he cannot name. He looks at it. He touches it. And then the thing transforms. It steps forward wearing a short crimson coat, suddenly a saint, suddenly commanding, and it drives everyone else out of the cave, Henry included, and takes the space for itself. Henry wakes up afraid. Not afraid the way you are afraid of a car accident or a diagnosis. Afraid the way you are afraid of a sound in a house you were told was empty. He cannot explain the dream. He cannot explain why it comes back. And that is precisely the problem. Not the content, but the gap between who he believes himself to be and the thing moving underneath that belief. Because there is a part of you that is already awake when you go to sleep. A vast, unlit room where everything you have ever known or felt continues to move, long after you have stopped paying attention to it. That is where dreams come from. Not from nowhere. From the enormous life running below the surface of the life you think you are living. And what lives in that room? Everything you have shoved into the dark end of the house. The traits you called too much, too weak, too shameful, or too wild. They are not gone. They are still there, pressing against the door. Henry's shapeless creature was not a monster from outside. It was the part of himself he had filed away so carefully that he forgot it was alive. This is what fear actually is most of the time. Not a response to danger, a response to proximity. Something you locked away has moved closer to the door, and you can hear it breathing. There are entire tribes who understood this. People who lived with an easy, optimistic faith during daylight hours, and then the moment the sun dropped below the horizon, turned terrified, because the dark was where the maker of fear lived, and at night every path was full of monsters that vanished by morning. The creatures were not real. The fear was. Henry could not explain his dream. And you cannot explain why certain things fill you with a dread that other people walk past without flinching. That gap between your reasonable self and the fear you cannot account for is where this begins. So let us go back to Henry. Let us go back to the cave. He is standing in front of something shapeless, something spongy and half alive, pressed into the dark corner of a mountain shelter. And the question that woke him up sweating was not, "What is that thing?" It was, "Why does it feel like mine?" Because it was his. Every bit creature was not some invader from outside his life. It was assembled, piece by piece, from everything he had ever decided he was not. Here is how that works. You come into the world as a complete, chaotic, unfinished animal. You are selfish and generous, brave and cowardly, creative and destructive, all at once. But very quickly the world starts telling you which parts are acceptable. Your family rewards certain behaviors. Your school punishes others. Your friends laugh at the wrong ones. And so you begin, without even realizing it, to sort yourself. The traits that earn love you keep in the light. The traits that earn rejection you push into the dark. Not gone, just relocated. You build a self you can show to people, and everything that does not fit gets shoved behind it. That curated self, the one you know by name, the face in the mirror, the voice that runs your to-do list, the part that shakes hands and tries to be reasonable, that is not the whole of you. It is only the lit part. It is only the room you have chosen to keep the lights on in, and the rest of the house is still there, and it is full. What fills it is what we call the shadow. And the shadow is not your evil twin. That is the mistake almost everyone makes. The shadow is the sum of everything you refuse to own, and refusal is not the same as judgment. You did not sort those traits because they were all wicked. You sorted them because they did not fit the version of yourself that got you through the day. Some of what you pushed away was dangerous, sure, but some of it was just too much, too loud, too tender, too ambitious, too strange. There is unlived vitality in there, stunted gifts, natural energy that got mislabeled as wrong because it showed up at the wrong time, in the wrong family, in the wrong classroom. The shadow holds destruction, yes, but it also holds gold. Henry dreamed later of a figure far more alarming than the cave creature, a man, dark-skinned and naked, standing in a frozen white landscape, surrounded by silence. Everything about the image was built to frighten. And yet that figure carried something Henry desperately needed. Raw masculine strength, physical confidence, emotional power he had spent years filing away because it did not match the meticulous, controlled person he had trained himself to be. The very thing he feared was also the thing he had starved himself of. That is the shadow's trick. It holds the monster and the medicine in the same hand. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. Because the shadow does not stay in your dreams. It walks around in broad daylight, and it wears other people's faces. There is a mechanism, call it projection, where you take the material you cannot face in yourself and you paste it onto someone else. The colleague who makes your skin crawl for reasons you cannot quite articulate. The stranger whose voice sets your teeth on edge before they have finished a sentence. The public figure you despise with an intensity that surprises even you. Projection is the way you meet your own hidden material on someone else's face. The person you instantly dislike for reasons you cannot name is often carrying something you have not yet admitted you own. You are not reading them. You are reading yourself, reflected back in a shape you can safely hate because it is out there, not in here. And this is why consciousness turns away. Because to look honestly at your own shadow is to look into a mirror that does not flatter. It shows you the face you never show to the world, the one behind every mask you have learned to wear. Most people would rather keep the lights off in that room forever than see what is actually in it. And you cannot argue the shadow out of existence. You cannot rationalize it into harmlessness. It is a living part of you, and it wants to live. So the question is not whether Henry's creature exists. It does. It is not in the cave. It is not in the dream. It is in every room he walks into, projected onto the people he finds unbearable, buried in the reactions he cannot explain, hiding inside the opinions he holds with an intensity that has nothing to do with reason. The question, the only question that matters, is whether he would rather keep meeting it on other people's faces for the rest of his life or turn around and look at it directly. Because the shadow does not go away when you refuse to see it. It just finds somewhere else to stand. So now you understand the landscape. You know there is a lit room and a dark room, and you know which one you have been living in. The question is, what happens to everything you left in the dark? Because it does not sit quietly. It moves. Here is the mechanism, and once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it. What you refuse to carry, you project. That is the